Welcome back. It's December 31st, 2021, and I'm going to show you some changes that I've made to the simulation here. Of course, the plants grow quickly before it populates the fish, and I've changed so that once the new fish are populated here randomly, they have a random amount of energy. So sometimes they're initiated pretty weak. Like here's a couple guys already dying and dead. Because they might be, and they're also initiated with like a random age between 0 seconds age and their max age. So of course when they hit their max age, that's when they start aging and so dying pretty quickly. So a lot of them are dying pretty quickly here because they were initiated already with some age and with not full energy either. So you can see the simulation is getting a bit jittery here, frame rate issues, because there's so many objects at this point. So many fish, plus so many pieces of dead fish to keep track of. So many piles of poop everywhere, you can see those. You'll notice there's some eggs here and there. And something else you'll notice here is that if there weren't so many fish, we could see it here. Matter of fact, let me change that here. But yeah, I'm going to restart the simulation here. But clearly there's so much going on here. I need to rethink maybe maybe have less poop on the screen might help. Less objects in general. Maybe I should have a fish die and only form 2 pieces of fish meat instead of 4 separate objects. Just fewer objects for the engine to have to track. Might help performance also. Might need to reduce the max number of fish. Also, but let me start a new simulation here so you can see an egg, see a fish be born from an egg. Okay, I reduced the number of fish to only 10, so you can better keep an eye on things. Let's pick a smaller guy who's more likely to live longer. I can catch him. There we go. So you can watch him. See how he does there. Well, he is not one to lay any eggs, is he? The almost dead yellowfish over there has laid some eggs, but their fish are coming out quite sickly. You know, when they're dark like that, that means they're low on energy. Below 25%, they start getting darker. So they're getting a little sickly. This guy's just super healthy, and oh, there he dropped an egg finally. Oh, there we go, and you can see it was born. But born pretty sickly. He's dead already. So I wanted to show you that. I've had the eggs and they hatched, but they were tiny fish. So I've implemented a growth process so that these baby fish can grow. And every second or something they grow a little bit until they hit the maximum size. But there's a problem. The problem is that the baby fish, when it's born, the baby fish has full energy that a baby fish can have, a fish of that size can have. So he's got full energy, but he grows so fast that he doesn't eat enough, get enough new energy to keep himself going. So does that make sense? They're growing so fast that they don't have the energy to maintain their bigger body. They're growing too fast, essentially. They're growing without the energy required. So I will show you how I implemented that growth, and then we'll try to figure out what to do to make things better. Because you don't want to have baby fish growing that fast and dying that fast. That makes no sense. So anyway, we'll talk about that here. So here's my growth script that I put in the fish. That's my growth method that I put in my fish script, fish.cs. This gets called every second because it gets called by the update energy script. So it's happening every second. And what happens is, you'll notice the fish size is increased by this growing with delta that I have set. That's coming from what is that coming from? I believe that's coming from just set in the application here. I just found some numbers in a spreadsheet that work pretty well. It starts out at 0.3. The width will grow by 0.3, but that growing amount I'm decreasing every time. So they grow a little faster when they're first growing, but then as they get closer to max age, the growth slows down a little bit. Anyway, that makes the increase of area every age be closer to the same area of growth each time period, not the same width growth each time period. Makes it seem a little more realistic. Once I've done that, then I change the scale of the fish, but with the new fish size, using the fish length ratio in the fish genes to determine the length. Here's the width. I'm calling a method called reset fish size variables, which I realized I needed to do, and I call that from other places now too. So I have this all happening in the same place. So you'll see what it does there. If you change the fish width, then you got a lot of things to change. For one thing, you've got to change the mass of the fish, which is part of the rigid body. So there's the fish. This guy right here gives me the length of the fish. Because the length's already twice the width in the object. That's why I'm multiplying by 2 here for that. The collider object also needs the mass of the fish. And then the length I'm calculating. And then I've got to change the max energy of the fish, because the max energy a fish can have is based on the mass of the fish. So I'm changing the length, which means I've got to change the mass, which means I've got to change the energy. And I got to change the quarter energy too, because I use that for figuring when it should start turning dark and when the thing starts getting weaker. And the max velocity is also related to the fish length. So all those things have to change when every time this thing grows. So it's got a little computational to do, but I can't imagine that would add much cost to the frame rate to make those few little calculations. Oh, by the way, I should say this, that the reason I'm adding the width like this, adding to the width by this constant, or this growing width delta, which is changing, but like just linearly. The reason I'm not doing a square root there is because I'm afraid the square root's too taxing, so I don't want to do a square root every second on every fish. So maybe that's why I did this weird kind of clunky method here. Anyway, after I reset all the fish variables based on the length, then I ask myself the question is, if this fish is not mature, then I check the fish size, and if the fish size is bigger than 1, then I mark it as mature. So a fish is considered mature when its width is equal to 1 or bigger. The fish starts out at 0.25 as a baby. When it gets to a fish width of 1, then it's fully mature and can start doing eggs. That's what will happen with that, is mature. That's what that's about. So then after that, we check the fish size to see if the fish size is greater than the max width of the fish. And if it is, then the thing is fully grown. We can stop growing. So then it sets this bool to still growing, sets it to false. And that will prevent this growth method from being called anymore if it's full grown. So that's kind of my approach to growth. A steady amount every second, and like I said, that's a problem because the fish does not have the energy increase to support a bigger body when it's growing that fast. So I think I want to have to redo this entire growth process to change it to where it's not working on the growth. It's not constant like this, but the growth is going to have to be based on the energy level of the fish. And if as the energy increases, it can grow. I think maybe I should do is say if the energy of the fish is greater than half its max energy, if it's so if it's 50% of the max energy or higher, maybe it can grow. But if it's lower than 50% of the max energy, it won't try to grow because it just can't handle it. So maybe I'll try to implement that here and see how that goes. So before I close the video out here, I wanted to just show you a little bit of a simulation with the growth, kind of the old growth method here, just to show you it's crazy. And it is interesting to see how these bright green squatty fish definitely seem to have some kind of advantage, because look how many there are compared to the other kinds of fish. The big long fish have all died out a long time ago, which is unfortunate. Hopefully the simulation as it goes will make room for bigger fish to survive. Those frame rate's still a problem. What's interesting is to look over here. You can see in the fish folder, you can see the number of fish here It says fish 291. So we started out with, I forget how many fish. Started with 30 or 50. Have a max number of fish set to 100. So at this point you can see, well, out of the first 100 fish, you know, a bunch of those have died to make room for the fact that we're up to almost 300 at this point. One last thing that's kind of interesting that I'll show you is I ran the simulation for quite a while last night, and made this video, just this little 14-second video of kind of where things stood. It's not much to look at, but what is interesting about it is we're down to just a few kinds of fish, obviously. But what's really interesting is how the plants have all sort of died off to the right, and they only seem to be existing on the left-hand side. I hadn't expected that, but as I think about why that happens, let's say that just to begin with, there happened to randomly be a few more plants on the left than on the right of the screen. So then the fish are going to eat more plants on the left than on the right. They're likely going to poop more on the left, and so more fish or more plants are going to develop from that poop on the left. And ultimately, the result has been that the plants have really clumped together on the one side and died off on the other side. So kind of a surprising trait there. And new plants are not going to grow on the right-hand side if the max number of plants are already reached. So it really requires a bunch more fish to actually eat the plants on the left, not just enough to take a bite of them, but enough to actually kill the plant entirely for a new plant to be able to grow. But odds are the pressures of the system will continue to keep killing off the plants on the right, and the plants on the left will continue to flourish at this point. So I thought that was kind of a interesting feature that sprung up. And just keep in mind that eventually the plan is to have the fish have some kind of vision system so they can see a green plant and swim towards it. And when they get towards it, hopefully they'll be smart enough to slow down so they can take more bites and not swim so fast, to burn up so much energy, be more efficient. I'm worried about that because that's going to be more computations for the fish brain to be smarter like that than they currently are. They're really dumb right now. They just swim random directions. What's that going to do to my frame rate? So I'm really worried about that. And I really might need to, I'm not sure what the best approach is to tackle that, because I really don't want to cut down the max number of objects to be much smaller. Maybe I'll have to. Maybe I can get some gains from changing the way I've done the fish and the plants, so they're just simple sprites and not like multiple sprites put together. I have to change the animation if I did that some, but could be done. So just things for me to think about here. Because right now the frame rate like this is really just annoying and not good to watch. And the whole idea here was to make an app that was, enjoyable to just kind of just sit back and relax and watch. All right, thanks for watching so far. That's where we stand.